moments this morning. I got about 15. It's a quick discussion. Although I often say it'll be quick and then it's not. So, I'll just get started here. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. And how y'all doing? So, I'm always reading, always researching, it's my edutainment. I rarely do things for pure entertainment. Most of the things that I do that are entertaining are actually educational. Except football and going to movies. That's it. Pretty much everything else is edutainment for me. It's always looking for opportunities to study and grow. Which is how I outgrew leftism. It's why I reject every aspect of public policy espoused and actually just reject their core philosophy of leftist, regressive, socialist ideology. Because on a good day it's foolish, but by and large it's purely wicked. So, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal, and I shared this earlier, that apparently the lights have gone out in Caracas, Venezuela. And as the article from the Wall Street Journal says, once upon a time, Caracas was a shining city, right? You're talking about a city, the capital city, the main largest city in a nation that is overflowing with oil. Largest proven oil reserves in the world, right there in Venezuela, the socialist paradise of Venezuela. Overflowing, abundant with natural resources. All the kind of things that just tend to poke a hole and deflate and destroy the social justice warrior. Because listen, if you're a social justice warrior, you know nothing about economics. I mean, you cannot be a social justice warrior and have any sort of competency about economics. I mean, those two are, mutually exclusive. The day you decide to become a social justice warrior is the day you decide to turn your back on the 1 + 1 = 2 realities of economics. Just know that. I mean, it's like literally, I ignore everything you say as soon as you identify yourself as a social justice warrior. I ignore everything you have to say, and you become Charlie Brown's teacher to me. Walk, because I know you know nothing. I know you're feeling, I know you're emoting all over the place, but you know nothing. I've talked about this in other videos, and maybe some of you have heard me say this and some of you haven't, but I always like to reference the former Soviet Union and the America's mortal enemy during the Cold War for several decades. That leftists, who basically are all communists, that leftists said that we should be weary of agitating that we should try to appease them, that and that there were many people who were in the United States who were of the belief that it was better red than dead. They actually believed that the march of communism was unstoppable, that one day communism would take over the world. And if you looked around the world in the 1960s, it appeared to be true. Communism spread throughout Asia, spread throughout Africa, spread throughout South America. It was on the march. And the Cold War throughout that period was essentially a hot war, a series of hot wars, a chess match. There was a lot of little hot wars that were proxy wars between the United States and the Soviet Union to fight against communism and socialism, right? Here along came a man, Ronald Reagan, who decided to do something counter to what the prevailing wisdom was. He decided to stand up to the bully. He decided to challenge them to a fight because he realized that the Soviet bear was actually a teddy bear. It was full of stuffing that they couldn't feed themselves. See, here's what you need to understand. Just within the geographic borders of the former Soviet Union and its Eastern European satellite states, the former Soviet Union controlled all the type of, virtually every type of natural resource that they could conceivably want, right? See, you have these leftists out there who say, oh, well, America's only rich because of its natural resources. And when you say that, you once again prove yourself to be someone who knows nothing about Econ 101. And from that moment on, all I hear is Charlie Brown's teacher talking, walk, 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 walk. And at that point, the only thing that happens is you get to hear me. I don't hear anything you have to say. Nothing you have to say from that point on is worthwhile regarding economics or even social justice. You know, literally, your words are worthless. If you're lucky, I'll keep talking to you and you'll get a chance to listen and learn. But you have nothing for me. You have nothing to offer me. You have nothing to offer the world with what you're saying other than your emotions just bubbling all over the place. At the end of the day, remember, the former Soviet Union was rich with natural resources. Oil, natural gas, shale, huge swaths of land the size of our Midwest, excuse me, where you could basically grow wheat like we grow wheat and grain. And I mean, it's deep, a deep, rich, dark soil capable of growing food. They have large lakes, freshwater lakes. They have rivers that flow through. They have everything. The only thing the Soviet Union, and of course, and then we go into other minerals like iron ore, bauxite, all the things. Essentially, the only thing the former Soviet Union did not have in terms of a natural resource was it did not have direct access to a warm water port that would not freeze in the winter. Which is why the Soviets had nuclear-powered icebreakers, because the only way they could have commerce during the wintertime from their ports is they had to break up the ice that formed because all of their ports that they had direct control over froze over. So that was one of the big things for them, and their desire for control was to have a direct access to a warm water port. But it really would not have mattered because they didn't know how to engage in commerce anyway. Okay? And look at Venezuela. Venezuela has all the natural resources that you could want. And the lights have gone out in Venezuela. Why? Because leftism is for museum-grade morons. That's what it is. The moment you embrace any aspect of leftism, you stamp moron on your forehead. I wish I could say this in a nicer way, but it's like saying, it's like being a doctor. Like, I am a doctor basically telling a patient that they have cancer. There's no nice way to say you have cancer. You have to find a way to say those words. You have cancer. Now, the good thing is, depending upon how far along you are in the cancer, it can be treated. But you have to tell someone you have cancer. And in this regard, you have socialism. It is a cancer. Consider me a doctor who's telling you you have cancer. We can do some things to cure it. It's not going to be an easy process, right? You're going to have to go through chemotherapy and radiology and whatever the stuff. I don't remember off the top of my head all the different types of cancer treatments, but essentially, you're going to have to go through cancer treatment. But you have cancer. If you're a leftist, you have a cancer of your brain. You have a cancer of your soul. If you embrace any aspect of leftist, regressive, socialist ideology, you have cancer. That's what you have. There's no nice way to say it. The thing is, this is not, it's a lot easier to cure because it's self-inflicted. You can simply, see, people who actually have cancer wish that they could just say, you know what, I don't want to have cancer anymore. And boom, they wouldn't have cancer. How great would that be? But that's not the way cancer works. Leftism is the worst kind of cancer because it's self-inflicted and you'll die from it if you don't decide to reject it. Imagine all you had to do is say, you know, I don't want to be a leftist anymore. And boom, it's done. You're cured of that cancer. Just like that. Because all someone has to do is present you with the facts. Leftism produces poverty. The people of Venezuela, on average, have lost about 20 pounds each. Why? Because there's no food. See, because the means of production were controlled, well, I was going to control collectively. Here's the interesting thing. When they say that the means of control, like when they say socialism, right, the morons who say, oh, socialism is a good thing because all it means is that the means of production are controlled collectively. Listen, there's a thing called the tragedy of the commons. When things are controlled, or when things are controlled collectively, when no individual is responsible, then no one is responsible. And you know what? Nothing gets done because it's someone else's fault. It's someone else's problem, not my problem. I'm not going to be the one. And so you end up, excuse me, with what they call the tragedy of the commons. It's an amazing thing what happens when you empower people. See, leftism does not empower people. If you look at the definition of the word empower, and then you look at the history of leftism, you have to come to the recognition and realization that leftism does not in any way, shape, or form empower people to lead and live better lives. With the exception of the elites. They live pretty doggone good. Case in point, the daughter of the former dictator of Venezuela, forgot her first name, but Hugo Chavez's daughter was the richest person in Venezuela. Now, I would say what I said was because she took her billions of dollars and left. She's not living in Venezuela anymore. I mean, seriously, like what person in their right mind would live in Venezuela with billions of dollars when, one, they don't have electricity. They do not have a consistent electrical source. They don't have food. I mean, it is a daily struggle to get food. Now, I'm sure there's a few wealthy people, but here's an interesting thing. I met a guy from Trinidad and Tobago. And most people don't know Trinidad and Tobago are very close to Venezuela. In fact, actually, the guy was telling me apparently that Trinidad is closer to Venezuela than Tobago is to Venezuela. And so what's happened is you've had a lot of people, much like Cubans, escaping socialism, going across 90 miles of shark-infested waters, building whatever, taking whatever materials they can, right? You know, you're talking about, you know, old bathtubs, you're stringing you're lashing together milk cartons, and I mean, I'm laughing, but it's not funny that they are taking any materials that they can and finding some ways to craft a raft. And I'm being charitable by calling it a raft, but to lash together materials to make something that floats. And they're putting their family at risk to go across 90 miles of shark-infested waters to escape socialism in Cuba. right? A tropical paradise. But people are risking their lives to escape this tropical paradise. Why? Because leftism sucks, and only a museum-grade moron thinks otherwise. And the same thing in Venezuela. People are doing whatever they can to get out of Venezuela and go to tiny little Trinidad. You have an entire nation, Venezuela, rich with natural resources, and people are leaving that big nation. Once again, doing some of the same things that Cubans are doing, lashing together wood and driftwood and all that, and they're trying to float over to get to Trinidad, to get out of Venezuela, because there's food in Trinidad. Tiny little Trinidad. Why? Because leftist, regressive, socialist ideology is for morons. Okay? It's literally, oh man, it just gets me fired up when I sit there and think about it. Because I hate stupidity. You know, it's like seeing someone banging their head against the wall and complaining that they have a headache, and you say, well, maybe you should stop banging your head against the wall. And they say, well, why are you judging me? And at that point, you're a moron. I'm getting away from you just in case your stupidity is contagious, in case it's an airborne pathogen. I want to get away from you. Everything about leftist, regressive, socialist ideology sucks. There's no nice way to say it. Like I said, it's like trying to find a nice way to say you have leftism is a cancer of the brain, a cancer of the soul. It's economic cancer. It creates poverty, right? And when you turn into public policy, it perpetuates poverty. It is what it is. There's nothing good to be said about leftism, on the fact that it's so bad that it makes capitalism that much better. That's the only thing good I can say about leftism. So anyway, listen, I gotta run, folks. On that note, take care. God bless.